continue the laws of Nitilat Yadiyim. Last thing we did was, for those of you that were not here, can you use a tap to wash with if you do not have a kli? And we see that the Tzitz Eliezer has two different components to it. You need both a kli and you need what's called koach gavra. So Tom Machlokes is a faucet considered a kli. So we said maybe in terms of it's a kli, does it hold the water in it? Does the pipes maybe considered a kli? He said it's a machlokes. And what about koach gavra? Well, koach gavra, maybe the first bit of water is koach gavra. So he said, however, you can be lenient if you open, close to wash your hands. And then he also said that you can maybe b'di'evid assume that the actual faucet to be a kli. And he said if you have no choice, and let's say the example we gave was you're at a Blue Jay playoff game, and you don't have a bottle, because they're not letting you get bottles, because they're really going to throw them onto the field, although it's just cans, but whatever, then in such a situation, you'd be allowed to use b'di'evid and make a bracha using a faucet. That was Tuesday's, the other day's topic. Today's topic is what is the quality of water? What is the type of water that one needs to use for Nitilas Yadiyim? Because we need a medium of water for this nitila. So it says the Shulchan Aruch in source number 1 on page 351, Shalek, Barad, Kfor, Galid, and Melach. So whether it's snow, whether it's ice, I'm not exactly to me, Barad is, I guess, hail. And snow, there's examples of the snow, and even salt. If you actually ground them down, or you melt them and they turn into water in the more liquid form, you could use them for Nitilat Yadiyim. Again, it needs to have a shiur, the proper amount. Now, what about using hot water?
Do you have to melt it down?
So you're going to have to melt it down. Yeah.
Like you can't rub your hand with ice or ice on your hand.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard to use an ice. How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that exactly?
You have like an ice bucket.
That's a shear thing. But for
right, that'd be a shear problem. There's no shear.
But for snow, that wouldn't necessarily be a shear thing.
Well, you're going to need, the snow will have to turn into some type of look. You're going to need a lot of,
Okay, so,
hopefully we'll never know this year, but, I think it's just a matter of time.
It's supposed to be a mild winter.
Right. No, it doesn't have to be that much.
According to the Farmer's Almanac, that's the only weather source I actually believe in, it's supposed to be a cold winter like last year, but with less precipitation.
They said it's because of El Nino that it's going to be warmer.
Who knows? Okay. It's warm outside today. Now, what about using hot water? Maim chamim. Even if yad soledet bahem, it's also considered water. That should be okay. However, not so simple. Because says the Gemara in Chulin, which is again, these are the dapeh of Gemara that talk about washing. Maim rishonim notlim ben bechamim ben betzonim. Maim rishonim meaning for bread, doesn't matter what type of water you use, hot or cold. However, maim macharonim, it has to only be cold. Why? Because we haven't really discussed this, but maim macharonim, one of the reasons that are mentioned, that are brought down, is to remove a type of tumah of some sort after you eat. Maybe it's melech sodomi, smell your hands are dirty, whatever the case, maybe hot water doesn't do it right. Which is quite ironic, because when you talk about washing dishes, you talk about from a health perspective, you're supposed to use hot water, right? You're not supposed to use cold water.
It's like a weird, it's
a
weird thing.
So it must be that this is not your typical type of dirt or bacteria of some sort.
Isn't zuhama don't they say it's like a ruach?
Yes, ruach ra. So it has to be some type of, some spiritual type of tumah.
So it doesn't care if it's hot or cold.
Right.
It does care. It's got to be cold.
So there you go. Okay. Says the Beis Yosef actually is Meko about using hot water. Turn the page, and in fact the Shulchan Aruch says Hamei ha'ur, that literally comes out, I guess, water that you put on the to boil for a tea, right? That came off the oven, boiling hot water, which is
water heated water.
Which obviously, if you use, you have other issues.
It says
third degree burns generally.
Note Nitilat Yadiyim afilu hen yad soledes. So even though your hand would recoil, if you use such water, it is still permissible. I don't know
why you
for Nitilat Yadiyim. Okay. Yeah. Now, why would anyone do that? I'm not quite sure. I guess
they're also cold.
I guess you're in a rush, and all you have is water that's heated. And remember, there's no faucet in those days.
Like a sakana, shouldn't you be patur from actually having to even wash your hands if all you have is boiling water?
That's what one would think.
Like,
that-
isn't this implying that even if you have boiling water, you should use it?
Also, I would say that if you're using I would assume, by the way, that if you're using hot water, you're going to be, shall we say, less likely to make sure you have the right shear. You'll be more likely to cut a corner, right? Because you don't want to.
But that's hot water, which you can actually like take on your hands. This is like, I guess, implying that it's like boiling water.
Okay, right. So be careful. You're assuming like it could be on a light fire. You don't know that it's like.
It's still hotter than like even your tap can get. Actually,
No, your
as
tap
hot
gets
as your
hot.
tap can get could be really hot.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's fire water.
Fire water. So says the Mishnah Berurah. So Mishnah Berurah is machmir. He says v'yesh machmirim bigad soledes behem. He says that's the achronim. To be ein lamayim acherim ein lahachmir. If no other water, again remember this is not the modern era. If you have no other water, fine. Although the truth is, if you're traveling, and actually you'll see a case, if you're traveling and you don't want to use you don't want to use the water that you have around you because maybe it's polluted, and therefore you're boiling your water. And all you have is this boiled water. Now, again, if you just waited a little bit, it's going to cool off. But you can't wait. It's not an option to wait. Maybe that'd be a practical case in the modern era, having only mayim chamim available. So, zayikar kedel shulchan aruch upostrin and iser klal. Postrin is like lukewarm water. That's for sure fine. Even if it was hot and now it's cooled off, meaning the issue is boiled water doesn't change the status of water. So this is a Hilchot Shabbos issue because we know that ein bishol achar bishol. So if I cook food, I can't recook it on Shabbos. Once it's cooked, I can't be chayav daraisa for bishol, right? Now water, however, if I cook water, well, which you don't really cook water, you boil water, and then it cools off, and I boil it again, we hold. We hold the halacha that you can't do it when it comes to liquid.
Cannot.
Meaning you can't cook it, and therefore you can't do it on Shabbos, right? Okay. So since it can be recooked, therefore it's asur to do.
Physically able to be.
Right. Since physically you're able to by water. So by all liquids, really. So therefore, if that's the case, maybe by boiling it, water, it loses the name water, in which case you can't use it for it to the stomach. The answer is no. Just like you can boil it and be chayav on Shabbos for bishul. So too, if you reboil water or water which has been cooked and cooled down, it's still water. So it doesn't change it. That's the okay. That's what he's trying to say here. Just wait a little bit so it cools off. So therefore, according to all opinions, it would be permissible. Okay, not the most practical case, but maybe if you're traveling. What about using water from the rivers and oceans?
Why wouldn't you be able to use it?
Because, says Shulchan Aruch, based on the Gemara, mayim luchlachim, dirty water, or seruchim, or smelly, stinky water, or marim, or bitter. And here's a definition of bad water. She'ein hakelev yachol lishtot mehem. Even if a dog, would not drink that water, you can't use it for Nitilat Yadiyim.
Couldn't use the ocean, probably.
But not all bodies of water are gross and fresh water.
So here we go. Your typical, so a lake, generally speaking,
If it isn't like
a lake water, dogs will drink.
not Lake Ontario, it's more. I think you die if you drink anything from there.
No, it's pretty good, actually.
It's pretty brown.
Yeah. So I was thinking more like Camp Lake water. But you're right. Lake Ontario
I
water.
never drink Camp Lake.
Neither would.
No, a dog? A dog would. A dog?
Dog would.
Oh, I don't know.
Dog has much lower standards.
Shimmy, Mr. Cottage Man?
Are you saying that Shimmy's a dog and would drink?
I'm thinking of like Ennismore's water.
Anybody here have a dog?
There's dead fish everywhere.
Okay, so I don't know what the stand. I don't know dogs.
I'm sure if you took it out.
I don't.
I'm sure
Not
if
only
you
do I
took
not
it out,
know dogs, I actually don't like dogs. But let's say I had a dog.
Not
and-
necessarily. Like you're just
Would
assuming
a dog
will
drink lake water?
Any gross thing.
I
That's not necessarily.
I don't know if a dog.
By the way, we know. By the way, you know that. By the way, what a dog will eat is also the condition of royal Nitilat Yadiyim. We know that by Pesach, right?
Right.
I don't know why that became a thing.
You don't just assume that.
Why dog?
No, because humans have a much hopefully higher standard.
Not a cat. Why not a
Because
cat?
cats were rodents.
What about
They were not domesticated.
what about a cow? What about sheep? I'm just gonna keep naming stuff.
So
What about
now,
wild?
because dog's man's best friend. I don't know. So here's a. I don't know the answer to this question. What would a dog do if it was thirsty? Would it drink? So you're saying Lake Ontario water?
I think
No chance.
No,
If you took
no
the Lake
living
Ontario,
organism
if
would
you
drink
took
that.
Lake Ontario water out, put it into a bowl, and put it in front
Like
of a dog.
Pepsi Cola test, it wouldn't
I
be
mean,
able to tell the difference.
I'm sure the dog.
Okay, gentlemen, we have to go on a trip, a tiyo. We're going to go downtown. We're going to scoop water out of Lake Ontario, feed the dog, and see what happens.
Dogs.
We got to do it. We have to.
It's going to be our line.
I remember my Rosh Yeshiva in high school, Rabbi David, wanted to know if toothpaste was a chilas kelev or not for Hilchot Pesach. So he took toothpaste and he fed it to a dog.
Yeah.
Dog refused to eat it. So he said, toothpaste isn't really chilas kelev.
Like
cool.
Yom Kippur.
Anyways,
Toothpaste.
no, it's so also no.
Wait,
Here's
so
more of an issue with.
If you can eat
I thought you could eat
toothpaste, can you eat
anything-
mint
No,
chocolate?
you're just not chayav.
Lo-
What? Not
lo-
chayav for? No, you can't eat it. It's not chayav. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's read on. But here's what's important. Meaning, what about for a woman to go to the mikvah or dishes? So for a woman to go for a tefillah or for dishes that need tefillah, dirty water is sufficient.
Okay.
Which, again, women are not so excited about that.
Ocean, of course.
Right, they go in the ocean. Women go into lakes and oceans, they have to. So,
Pea soup is fine.
and what about if it's muddy, right? If the mud is mixed into this water. So again, ima kelev yachol lishtot mehem kshirim. Bein until yadayim ben lemikvah. V'im eno yachol lishtot mehem psulim l'shnehem. So if there's dirt in it, if it's like really dirty water, then even for a mikvah, it wouldn't be good. And there's the very simple reason is because if dirt's going to go in your body, it's not touching. Your body needs to touch, or the dish needs to touch water, not dirt. That's not appropriate. So I want to just do two more that we're actually going to stop. We'll continue the rest later. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what is Mayim Luchachim Mehayam? What's a yam is a sea. Now, seawater is different. Well,
It's salty.
Salt.
generally speaking, I think are all seas salty? I think so, no? Right.
They're all connected.
So therefore, seawater is going to be
That's like the bit. That's like the
saltier.
It's all
If I were to take a dog to Yam HaMelach, we would never drink it. It's way too high concentrated.
It's also not.
And that's also a higher level.
It is a lake.
It's like if you drink it, like you puke, right?
Yeah.
Like if you,
Yeah.
So I imagine a dog would suffer the same
someone said that you would
consequences.
puke if you just stay in there too long anyway.
Really?
I assume.
So now, what happens? You take the salt water and you boil it. Im her tichuotan. So again, I think when you boil it, if you boil salt water, the water evaporates enough of salt. If you boil it out, and I guess you condense it and you use that water, then it'd be sufficient and you could actually use it. It would not be a problem. Just to conclude with the Yalkut Yosef. Says Yalkut Yosef, no salt water, because the dog can't drink it. So again, once again, we see that in the contemporary postgame, drinkable water is defined as what a dog will drink or not. Therefore, so there's a solution. What do you do if you're by a sea? You don't use Nitilat Yadiyim, you do Tvilas Yadiyim. Because you're allowed to do Tvila in salt water. That's what he says. Lachein yatpil yadav v'mehayam v'hu adin b'mayan. And the same thing with the spring. So there are situations that you can't get. I'll give you an example. This is a fair example. You are on Emir Hashem, you're on a date, and you're by the Lake Ontario, and you want to wash, and you're near the water. I don't know if I'd recommend doing this. But let's say, you can't reach and pick up in a cup the Lake Ontario water to wash with. So maybe you could do Tfilas Yadayim. Maybe if you do that, she won't want to date you anymore. I'm not quite sure. Come prepared.
I don't be going out.
It's a one date.
If it's not going so well.
If it's not going so well. It's not going so well, then you don't want. Okay, let's go on. So, even if there's no arbim sa'ah, because remember, which is not a problem in Lake Ontario, arbim sa'ah is what you need for a mikvah, but to dunk your hands in water for tvilas yadayim, you don't need arbim sa'ah, it's only by the mikvah. For tvilas yadayim, you only need revis of water, like you need regularly. And that's good enough. As long as the water can totally submerge your hand in one shot, that is enough water. And if you boil it out, then it's fine. If you can't boil it, and you can't dump your hands in, and you can't do tefillah because you're in an ocean, you're on a boat, on the water, You have no choice. You could do Nitila in the ocean, dump your hands in this gross water, but lo yivarech. You cannot make a bracha. Adif. This is better than ma'asher yinaket yadav b'midei deminki. Than using.
It's like wiping your hands or something.
Like like wipe your hands on like a tree or something like that. He says that's better this way. Okay, so what do we see from here? That the mehayam, seawater, possible to dine with a kli, is okay to use for tvila, because it's definitely not worse than tefillah, because you could use it for tefillah saguv, which is permissible in a sea. Okay, let's stop there for today, and God willing, on Tuesday to be continued. Have a wonderful